way we need to support our allies, but at the same time, I think that we could support our allies from our home front. If we need to go somewhere quickly, we have assets and troops that can do that, and I don't think that scattering us all over the world is going to really make that any more efficient.
Congressman Paul has been receiving, not just here in 2012, but in 2008, was the only candidate to get the most support from campaign contributions from active and veterans in the military. What is it about Paul's message that gets the military so enthusiastic about him and his message?
Well, one of the things is he's a military man himself. Obviously, he served in the Air Force, so that definitely strikes a chord with anybody in the military. Second of all, he doesn't want to cut any of our budget, and then when he does cut budget, it's going to be some of the more frivolous spending that goes on in military spending with government contracts and stuff like that, instead of cutting into the pockets of the soldiers and their families.
Now, you have the rest of the GOP field talking about Ron Paul's foreign policy as a bad thing, as something that the country should be fearful of. As someone who served in the war, what are your thoughts when you hear other people in the field, or even pundits on TV, mention that Paul's foreign policy is bad for the country?
Well, anyone I hear say that Ron Paul could be a dangerous president, especially someone like Michelle Bachmann saying that, I think that's absolutely ludicrous. She obviously doesn't know what it's like to be on the ground over there, and I think that a war with Iran is a little more dangerous than letting Israel take care of their own problems.
I was just going to ask you about that with, you know, the rest of the GOP field talking about going to war with Iran as sort of like a game of Risk, just playing, you know, our soldiers off as maybe pieces in a game. In your mind, is going to war with Iran a good thing or a bad thing for the country, and what would the ramifications even be?
Well, obviously for someone like me, it's a horrible thing. I have a family, and nobody wants to go over there and risk their lives. Now, for some people in political power who might get government contracts through KBR and stuff like that, war brings money, and they know this. But I think it's a bad thing, and Israel, they've said several times they can take care of themselves, and I think that we should let them. They have a very strong military, and I'm pretty confident they can handle their own.
Final question, well, two more questions actually. The National Defense Authorization Act, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Your thoughts on the whole militarization, the policing in this country? The bill even goes as far as saying as the military can detain American citizens. What are your thoughts on that, and just, you know, the military's role in America?
Well, I don't think it's the military's role to detain citizens unless they're committing acts against our country, and you know, that's got to be left to the experts to really determine who is committing the acts and who's not.
Overall prediction tonight and the rest of the way for Ron Paul, if he wins Iowa, how big could that be for his campaign and getting more and more people enthusiastic about it?
Well, I'm very obviously optimistic about this.
All right, he's very enthusiastic, but we all know that the globalists clearly got in there and engaged in some type of secret activity. They counted the votes in secret right there. I mean, there's your proof right there. And we're supposed to be gullible and just buy into it. But there you got to hear a large snippet of him not being censored. We're going to post the rest of the interview. There's like 10 minutes of it tomorrow at INFOWARS.com. Now, here, and by the way, great reportage by our correspondent out there, Julio. Now, let's go more to the veteran and the current serving troop, Jesse Thorson, right here where Ron Paul and others bring him up on stage, something the establishment doesn't want you to see. Here it is.
For quite a few years, and you may have met him because he's been around here this evening, but I'd like him to come out and say a few words. He's been serving in the military for 10 years, and he's been overseas a lot. A lot of it was in Iraq and Afghanistan. And he was on TV tonight, and he didn't quite get to finish his statement. So I've asked him if he would come out and make his comments about why he supports our foreign policy, why he is fighting for the Constitution, and what he thinks we should do. But I would like to invite out now Jesse Thorson to come out and say a few words to you. Thank you. How about Ron Paul? If there's any man out there that's had a vision for this country, it is definitely him. His foreign policy is by far, hands down, better than any candidates out there. And I'm sure you all have. You don't need to pick your fights overseas, and I think everybody else knows that too. I'm flabbergasted right now. This is an incredible moment for me. I can't believe it. It's like meeting a rock star.
But you know what? We're going to go to New Hampshire. We're all going to get involved. We're going to keep getting online. We're going to keep talking to people. And we are going to make sure this man is the next president of the United States.
What was it like having Ron invite you up?
Well, great job, Mr. Thorson, Ron Paul, Rand Paul, and his wife, Carol, Ron's wife, and a Revolution PAC for getting us that incredible footage we just premiered here to you. Just amazing to see what the alternative media is doing, becoming the mainstream media. We are supplanting the globalist deceivers. Okay, let's continue here with some of the news. I've got some more Ron Paul news. Business Insider reported Ron Paul may have secretly won the Iowa caucuses, and their point is most of the Iowa caucus is a glorified straw poll. But then that decides the delegates that go on to the national level at the convention. And the Republican insiders know this, so they try to change things for a broker convention where if they don't like who wins it, they can finagle it. Ronald Reagan in 1980 was told, you put George Herbert Walker Bush on your ticket, this is on record, or we won't nominate you. And so a lot of this stuff can happen behind the scenes, but Ron Paul has got so many people at the grassroots getting into delegate positions, a lot of them who are even later going for other candidates, but are really going to flip-flop for Ron Paul. This is really one of the big secret weapons we've got to counter what the establishment does. So very, very exciting on that front. Ron Paul is also blasted back at the chicken hawk Gingrich. I mean, all of these mainline Republicans dodged military service. Ron Paul didn't, 5 years in the Air Force, during wartime operations. And he pointed out Gingrich has no business talking about danger because he's putting other people in danger. Yeah, it's always these people like Richard Pearl who are self-propelled stomachs who couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag, who talk about murder and death like it's cool. Anybody who's actually been in a bunch of fistfights or war, even worse, knows, you know what, it isn't fun. And it's not something we're looking for. Violence is something that has to be done to defend yourself. It's not something that's manly and cool. I mean, if that was the case, you'd be, oh, a 400-pound guy beat up a 100-pound woman. Isn't he tough? Or look, Mike Tyson beat up a woman. No, that's shameful. And people who are more strong oppressing the weak is pathetic. And Newt Gingrich is just a warmongering, torture-loving, secret arrest, police state piece of trash who wants every form of globalist tyranny. I mean, open borders, world government, into the family, carbon taxes, Obamacare. He is a piece of trash. And the public woke up to him. But what about Mitt Romney? He's exactly the same. I don't think he's inherently as evil. I've studied Romney. He's not an actual globalist initiate, but still he's bad news. I mean, Newt Gingrich is bad news. Yeah, we've got a clip of Paul here talking about the chicken buzzard. Here it is.
I don't want to ever fight a war that's unconstitutional, and I'm the dangerous person. You know, when Newt Gingrich was called to service in the 1960s during the Vietnam era, guess what he thought about danger? He chickened out on that. He got deferments, didn't even go. So right now he sends these young kids over there to endure the danger, and the kids coming back and the young people coming back. And the ones in the military right now, they overwhelmingly support my campaign.
Okay, hitting a few more news pieces here before our interview with another tyrant. I mean, nowadays being a tyrant's the good guy. So if you had G.I. Joe cartoons today, not in the 1980s, when I was watching them, I was actually a little old to watch them, but I still snuck in a few when I was like 12 years old or 13. G.I. Joe doesn't torture. They don't secretly arrest. They follow the Bill of Rights and Constitution. Cobra Commander tortures and does horrible things. But now the good guys wear black masks and dress just like Cobra Commander. That's coming up. But I wanted to shift gears to something that's in the high-tech range. The Daily Mail reports the plane built to soar above the clouds on Saturn's mysterious moon Titan. They're sending an unmanned drone to Titan, which I'm all for exploration. The problem is the government lies so much. Who knows if they discover something that we'll even be told. But they're sending the unmanned drone that's propeller-driven once it gets there to fly around and around Titan and send back messages to the planet Earth at a cost of $715 million. The Avatar probe is built to take 3D photos of the surface. They believe there could be life on Titan to help scientists build a picture of the planet's geology. At the end of the mission, and by the way, it's huge, it's bigger than most planets, the 120 kg aircraft would drive down to the surface and attempt to land on Titan's dunes. Wow. Talk about amazing. That is certainly cool. And closing out our news segment tonight, Obama says he doesn't even need the National Defense Authorization Act to indefinitely detain Americans. And I pointed this out a month ago. I said, look, they're already killing citizens without a court trial. They're already saying they'll do this. Obama threatened to veto it because he says, I don't need Congress to give me the authority. Congress said, okay, we'll change it and say you're a dictator. And he said, okay, I'll sign it. And boom, he signed it with a big fat Barack Obama. But it woke a lot of people up when that happened. Now, here's a piece that our reporter and researcher Darren McBreen put together, because every time new videos come out of troops killing dogs, people get really upset. They shoot them, they stab them, they throw them off cliffs, they blow them up with hand grenades. Every time this happens, or people's sheep or cows or horses over there in the Middle East or Central Asia, people say, oh, it's a fake dog, but later it's confirmed, no, they're doing this. This is what the bad elements do. And if you don't decry it, you allow that to infect the rest of the military and discredit them all, when most of them are good men and women. So defending this type of psychopathic behavior discredits the entire military. And at the end of it, we have some examples of how the military should behave. So we're going to go ahead and go to this report here on INFOWARS Nightly News. Don't forget the website.